Camp question number 3 involves Ime Udoka year number 2. How will he evolve in his second year as a coach? How does he improve a defense that was already really good? How does he improve an offense that relied so much on Tatum and Brown? And how do his players help him evolve as a coach? It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you so much for making this show part of your daily routine. That's right, I'm back to daily, Monday through Friday, free, fresh podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening and you'd rather watch the show on YouTube, you can do that. The show is on YouTube. Watch the show, stream it on your TV, have it in a background tab at work. I don't care. You do you. I'm just here to give you a podcast every day of the week, Monday through Friday. I'm John Karalis, former professional basketball player, credentialed beat writer covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've been doing this show for about 7 years now. I've been covering the team for about 16. So I've been around. I've also written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. So check that out wherever you get your books. Today, it's all about Ime Udoka. It's a series of camp questions. This is number 3. We did number 1 last week, which it was, can the Celtics live up to their expectations? Number 2 on Friday was Robert Williams. Can he take another leap? This is all a companion podcast to stuff that I've written on Boston Sports Journal. So I would encourage you to read the stuff there on Boston Sports Journal, as well as listening to the podcast, because just different points fleshed out a little bit differently. It's a little bit different when you write it versus when you're talking about it. So it all goes together as one cohesive type of thought process. So check it out on Boston Sports Journal, as well as listening to the show here. I want to start out by congratulating the Las Vegas Aces for winning the WNBA championship. Great season for the Connecticut Sun. I was lucky enough to get to a lot of those Connecticut Sun games this year, including one of those WNBA finals games, the one that they won. So I got to see them win one last game. Tough to see them lose, but hard-fought game. Las Vegas was stacked. Great job, Becky Hammon. I do think that one of these NBA teams that interviewed her is going to regret not hiring her. It's just my opinion. I think that she's really good. You hear her talk. You see how she interacts with her players. I think she's a really good coach. So we'll see. We'll see if one of these other teams, how their coach, how their hire works out. And if it doesn't, then they might look back and say, oof, Becky might have been a good choice. Regardless, I know that Ime Udoka has gone through some of that same stuff himself. I forget if Tom and I were talking about it on the podcast or after we were done, but Tom Westerholm and I were having a discussion, and Tom brought up the point. Ime was in the same boat. Other teams had opportunities to hire Ime Udoka, and they didn't. And now the Celtics took advantage of that, and they have him, and he's done an extraordinary job after 1 year as a head coach. But now, year 2, you have to evolve. You can't just stay stagnant. You can't just keep doing the same exact thing, because teams will understand. Teams will be able to game plan. If they know what you're going to do, they can just get ready for it. It's like a pitcher. This is the first time around the lineup. Okay, that's great. You got 9 outs. But that second time around the lineup is what makes a good pitcher good. How can you get a guy out when he has seen your stuff already? This is the second time through a lineup now for Ime Udoka. What can he do? What kind of stuff does he have to go out there and throw other teams curveballs? Later on, I'll talk about, in the third segment, the general kind of how the team can help him evolve and he can help the team evolve in general, how that involves everybody. The offense will be in segment 2, but right now the big thing is the defense, because that's where Ime hangs his hat. It's on the defense. We know that the Celtics defense was stifling. We can reasonably expect the defense to be, at the very least, really damn good again this upcoming season. But just like the pitcher who's throwing whatever he's throwing, You got to mix in some other stuff. Because that's what's going to make your bread and butter look its best. So if you're a fastball pitcher and you get your fastball into the 90s, you better have at least one off-speed pitch that makes that other pitch look better. So that 90-mile-an-hour fastball looks faster than it was because you've just got other stuff to support that. So I'm looking to see how Ime evolves as a coach in year 2 defensively, because he has basically the same team coming back with a few notable differences, but most of these guys and the most important guys are returning players. They understand. So if you remember last season in the preseason, how all of us in the media, we were writing stories about the incessant switching. I mean, every little thing, anything they did, everything was a switch. Everything was a switch. And Ime said, this is kind of like an immersion type of therapy. We need to get these guys so used to it because they didn't do as much switching in the past. We need to get them used to the switching. And once they're used to the switching, we can start incorporating some other more traditional stuff. Okay, they did that. Now they come into this season a year later and they don't have to go through that whole step, right? They'll probably start out with the, hey, here's a reminder, we switch a lot, and you get back into that groove, but they should already know. They now have that expectation, that understanding. They've got a year full of film. They've got that habit down. They understand what Ime wants. They know how to deliver what he wants. So once that's the baseline, now you can start adding things. What wrinkles will they start adding to make that switching defense look even better? The first most natural thing that I think of is a zone, because switching is kind of sort of zone-like, because you're going up to a certain spot and then you're coming back because you're switching to a player. You're playing an area more than you are playing a player. It's not entirely zone, but it might as well be in some cases. So that could be a very easy thing, especially as you want to incorporate a little less movement for Al Horford. Do you want to preserve him a little bit? He's 36. If you make it to the finals, he'll be 37 in the finals. Reasonable to say, hey, we gotta limit him a little bit. We got to preserve him a little bit. Throw a little zone in there. Make it so he's not switching out onto the perimeter as much and guarding guards. You want to take that away from him a little bit. So a zone could be a way to do that. You throw in zone just to mix it up and say, oh, you were expecting this thing? Well, here's a completely different look, a completely different kind of zone. Zone is very popular. And I know that a lot of people say, well, zone is a kind of a cop-out, but you gotta mix it up. So that would be one thing that I really do expect some level of zone defense, more than we saw last year, which was basically none. I don't know if they played any zone last season, or if they did, it was very minimal. So I want to see something like that. I think that could be an interesting kind of evolution. Just could be on out of bounds plays. It could be for 3 or 4 possessions, and then you change it up. Will they start incorporating other blitzes? Blitz the ball handler. They're expecting a switch, and if you're just expecting a switch, you're certainly not expecting a second guy to come up and bother you. So if you're a ball handler and you say, okay, here comes the big, and I know Robert Williams is going to come up. Well, wait a second. Wait, how many people are around me? I got Rob, I got Smart, I got, oh my God, that's not what I expected. Mix in the blitz to force some sort of panic. You do that for 3-4 possessions, and once they start to understand it, you change it up. I think that you can, let me add, before I get to that, you can add like drop coverage. Anything that we saw, they did that a lot more in the playoffs. We can see some of that involved as well. I would expect that because they used it so heavily. If you're going to incorporate a guy like Cornette into the lineup and you want to make up for whatever defensive deficiencies he has, some of these things could be a way to do that. So what I expect is about 70 to 80% of the defense to look basically the same as it did last year. That other 20% of the time, 30% of the time, what's it going to be? Now you take that 30% of the time and say, well, some of that's going to be the zone and some of that's going to be blitzing and some of that's going to be drop coverage and some of that's going to be switching, but it's going to be a different kind of switching. You're going to wait. It's going to be a delayed type of switch, depending on the play. It's going to be switching 1 through 3 instead of switching everything, switching 1 through 4 and leaving Al Horford back, alone and not forcing him to switch. Different things like that. Now, 70% of it could be your normal stuff. That other 30% could be just enough if you just intersperse it to keep a team on its toes. And that's all you're looking for in the defense. You don't want to get too far away from what you do well, but you also need to mix it up. And that's part of the evolution that I am looking for. Offensively, what are the Celtics going to do to mix things up? Talk about that next and how Robert Williams, I think, factors fairly heavily into that. First, let's talk about RocketMoney. RocketMoney is a great subscription kind of management service. I just had to sign up for a new streaming service because there's a show that I wanted to watch and it's just not on any of the services that I use. Well, time to sign up for a new one. And I've done that probably 2-3 times already on top of the stuff that I already knew I was going to get. So basically, they all pile up. Starts to get a little confusing, but that's why RocketMoney comes in, and it's just a way to protect yourself against losing, wasting money. 80% of people have subscriptions that they forget about. So it could be one of those streaming services. It could be an unused Prime account. Whatever it is, don't want to waste money on these subscriptions you don't even use. You might have heard of it. It used to be called Truebill. I talked to you a bit about Truebill last season. Now it is called RocketMoney. This app shows all of your subscriptions in one place. It cancels what you do not want, and it does it for you. RocketMoney could even find subscriptions you didn't even know you were paying for, which is awesome. It's very easy to lose track. You may even find out that you've been double charged for one. You can cancel simply by pressing cancel on RocketMoney. RocketMoney takes care of the rest. So cancel unnecessary subscriptions with RocketMoney today. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Seriously, it could save you hundreds of dollars per year. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Make Locked On NBA your second listen every day. I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans, rotating hosts all week long. It's a great way, a fun way to keep up with everything going on in the NBA daily, Monday through Friday, just like this show. Find it wherever you found this show. Also on YouTube. It's worth it to me, to you. It's fun. It's good. Good podcast, if I do say so myself. Ime Udoka evolving in a second season. Can't stay stagnant. You got to evolve. You got to keep growing. Then how do you do that offensively with the Celtics this year? And this is where I think there's the most growth for the Celtics, because I really do believe there's a lot of last year that was done out of necessity, that the Celtics didn't have as deep a bench. They didn't have Derek White to start. They started out with Dennis Schroeder. Now you got Derek White to start out the season. You got Malcolm Brogdon in there to start the season. It's just a much different dynamic. You can plan for these guys rather than fitting Derek White into what you're already doing. Now you have a little bit more of, okay, Derek, we're building this stuff with you in mind. It's just a little bit of a tweak. It's not going to change the entire offense, but knowing that you're coming into a season, you know you're part of this team, you know that you're part of the plan, that the team is building stuff with you in mind, that's going to help Derek White, I think, be a better overall player. It's going to help Malcolm Brogdon be integrated a little bit more smoothly. So there's going to be some natural evolution here. They're going to have more options. I'm very curious to see what they do. I think there's a small lineup that you can do: Smart, White, Brogdon, Jaylen, and Jayson. And I'm just fascinated to see if he does that, how often he does that, what that looks like, because in some ways that level of, I think that, first of all, offensively, that's just a great lineup. I know you say, well, Marcus and Derek are you look kind of sag off of those guys, but in catch and shoot opportunities, I think both of those guys can be good. Defensively, they're so versatile that I think there's going to be a lot of their offense that just comes off of steals and misses and running. There might be some issues there rebounding. That would be an issue, I think. I kind of want to see what it looks like. I want to see if it has the potential that I think, or if it's just too small and if there's just not enough shooting there. I think there is, but who knows? But that could be, I mean, talk about an evolution offensively. Think about everybody's a ball handler. Everybody can pass. That just, you kind of don't even need the shooting, because just keep attacking, keep getting into the middle, the teeth of that defense, drive and kick and drive and kick and drive and kick. And eventually somebody's going to, I mean, the defense could pass out with the level of attack that defense can, that offense can throw out there. So natural evolution offensively, but also within that, getting the ball out of Tatum and Brown's hands. I think that obviously Tatum and Brown are going to be relied on very heavily. They're going to continue to be relied on to be distributors. They're still going to be asked to collapse a defense, to draw the defense and make their teammates better. They are certainly going to be asked that. That is certainly going to be part of the plan. Is it going to be as much of the plan as before? Can you use the threat of those two guys shooting to run more stuff with one of your or two of your other ball handlers and work those guys off the ball? I love off-ball action. And, I mentioned Becky Hammond before. She said a really insightful thing. Like, I didn't really think about this much, where she talked about her team don't rest on the defensive end, because no one wants to rest on the offensive end. Now, on offense, everybody's got the energy. Don't rest on defense. Actually rest on offense. When you come down, find a corner and just stand there for 20 seconds. Fine. Catch a breather there and run the offense on the other side of the floor and just kind of take a second. I think that's kind of interesting, and within the flow of the game, an important player that's not going to come out, that could be a way for that player to just kind of grab a quick 20 seconds, hands on the knees, say, all right, you guys do something. Let me take this play off. I'll get back on defense with you, and then we'll get back into the flow of things. So there's certainly some element of that you're going to have to work into the calculus here. It's going to be part of the equation. But off-ball, I want off-ball movement. Like, I think off-ball movement is key to a great offense. And I understand that there's going to be, you want guys to stand there and space the floor. I understand that you're going to want some of these shooters to stand there and keep a defender engaged. But also, I want to see them kind of set picks for and do other stuff off the ball, some movement to at least make the defense go, well, wait a minute, where's this guy going? What are they doing? And if you get that defense occupied enough, that just opens things up, I think, a little bit more. So I want to see that off-ball movement with Jaylen and Jayson. Force the defense to pay very close attention to Jaylen and Jayson, as far away from the ball as possible, and let Marcus or Malcolm or Derek, along with Rob or Al, run something and basically play 3-on-3 with a ton of space. And if one of those other defenders says, oh crap, something's happening and I've been so occupied with this, I gotta run into the paint. Well, you're leaving one of Jaylen and Jayson, and that guy's going to pop open. So I think there's just something there, an extra element to the offense, where I want to see more Jaylen and Jayson off the ball, staying and not have the pressure of reading everything and have reading 4 or 5 level. I don't want to see that be all that they do. I want to see off-ball stuff. Let them catch the ball on the move. Let them catch and shoot more. I want to see that stuff. Give them the opportunity to cut more. And that brings me to Robert Williams as a passer, which is something that I brought up on the Friday podcast. I will bring that up as often as I need to make this point. Robert Williams as a passer is so good that it doesn't make sense to not use that weapon. Even though he is also very good as a roller, why not mix in some of him as a passer and throw more of him in the high post? I want to see more fake dribble handoffs where he can attack, and even if he fakes a handoff and doesn't dribble and do whatever, I want to see him fake and turn and make a pass to a cutter back door. I want to see more Robert Williams in the high post and more action off the ball. So some of these guys, why not get Jaylen and Jayson some cuts? Why can't you get 4 points a game off of some sort of off-ball action and a cut for Jaylen, and another 2-4 points a game? Why can't you get something like 6, 8, 10 points a game total from just cuts off the ball and have Rob just boom, boom, boom. Here we go. Could that assist percentage that went from over 14 to 9 point something, I don't have in front of me. Why can't that assist percentage be up into the mid to high teens again? I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be. I think that he's a very willing and very, very good passer, that it's too good a weapon not to use. So all of that stuff, part of the offensive evolution. Adding Brogdon and having Derek White here from the beginning could be enough to start spreading some of the other responsibilities around and say, hey, let's start these guys off the ball. Let's start Rob. Let's get Rob some opportunities to use his passing ability, because that can just open some things up. There are give and go opportunities with Rob that can just add another wrinkle to him catching lobs. You catch the ball up top, you run some action, you give that ball up, and then you cut, boom. There could be just a boom, touch pass, alley-oop back to Rob. There are ways to make this work and have it still be some of the stuff that's familiar, just different wrinkles. All right, let's move on to call them general adjustments, but this is about the team and how the team can use their evolution to fuel Ime's evolution. That's next. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Now, head on over to the Locked On NBA feed and make the NBA Top 50 your second listen. Which player moves the betting line the most this season? Locked On and BetOnline odds makers present the NBA Top 50 most valuable players. Find it on Locked On NBA, that feed wherever you get your podcasts. It's also on YouTube. I also have a hand in that, so I will be featured on there as well from time to time. So check it out. Wrapping things up here on the general Ime adjustments and his evolution in the second year. And I've talked a lot about this, the data points. You now have year one as your data point, and where does year two go? Where does he take that evolution? Where's that next pin? Where's that next pin with the yarn that I keep referencing? Because eventually there will be more pins and you start to get a whole picture of what Ime Udoka's coaching career is going to be like. However, it's just not as simple as keep doing the same thing. But evolving is not easy, and evolving takes work, and evolving takes work from your players. I think one key to Ime evolving as a coach is the evolution of his team, the players specifically, the Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, the guys that I keep mentioning as the core, Jaylen, Jayson, Marcus, Rob, Grant Williams as well. But the guys that can come in and hit the ground running with the knowledge that they didn't have last year at this time, right? That stuff that they didn't know last year is stuff that's kind of second nature. Second nature is probably the better way to put it. Second nature to them now. And that's important, because if Ime can rely on his players to pick up the basic concepts faster, there's going to be some level of forgetting while you're on vacation over the summer. Yeah. I forgot. That's what we're calling this. I forgot that's what we do. So training camp's going to be a bunch of reminders, but it's not going to be that full immersion learning that we had last season. And hopefully there's no COVID to deal with that cost Jaylen and Al so much of the preseason. That was I think that held them back a bit last season too. If they can get this through training camp, fine, and get through training camp having been able to add new things, that's going to help Ime evolve as a coach. Now you get to see how is he doing? Will he add some zone? Will we see in game one a whole quarter where they just play zone and just to try it out? Will we see them play a whole game zone, or a whole game trapping, or a whole game whatever? What will we be able to see next season that's different? What can he add simply because his players have evolved themselves and understand this is what Ime wants? How much of what Ime has been trying to get through to these guys, mentality-wise, the accountability-wise, how much of that becomes second nature to these guys? Are those marathon film sessions, the 90-minute film sessions, the extended film sessions, how many of those are there going to be? Or can they get back to the practice floor once the season starts and they're going every other day? How many of those film sessions are going to be shorter? How many of them will allow for Ime to say, hey, we got some time. Let's try this thing that we're working on. We're introducing this new defense. We're introducing this new offense. Let's work on some things. Or could be as something like Ime saying, I was watching that Minnesota-Portland game last night, and they did something interesting. I think it could work for us. Let's steal that and see if we can modify it for our use. Because I think, well, first of all, that happens all the time. So, but if you're constantly harping on the fundamentals of what you're trying to get across, if you're constantly refining your basic stuff, you're not going to get to this other stuff. So how much will this team be able to allow for Ime Udoka's evolution by having evolved themselves, having understood now the basics, have that all under their belt, and be open to this next step, these next few things? It's going to take everybody. And I think if Ime can trust these guys to run everything and do it at a high level, a higher level than at this point last year, a level that we were used to in the second half of last season, then maybe he will give some of the guys that are trying to be integrated in, a Luke Cornett, maybe those guys get longer leashes. Because if you can trust Malcolm and Derek and Marcus and Jaylen and Jayson and Al and Rob and Grant to do everything as smoothly as possible, to have understood those concepts, to now have that be part of their DNA, then maybe a guy like Luke Cornett, who might be struggling with certain things, can get a little bit of a longer leash because you could just rely on these other guys to get certain things done. And you don't have to say, well, this guy's out. I can't have this guy in there. I need another guy we're just going to have to shorten the rotation because everybody's just working so hard. And I can't have a person who's not hitting because everyone else is still shaky too. And this is my best chance at getting through it. If everyone else is way into, if they're a well-oiled machine, then you can say, all right, we can deal with Luke Cornett having a little bit of a curve. It's easier for us to work him in. And those other guys, knowing everything, can be more coaches on the floor. They can be more helpful on the floor. So I just feel like the team's evolution as a whole is going to help Ime Udoka evolve. So it is on the players. It is on those other guys to pick things up kind of where they left off and give the coaching staff the opportunity to throw this other stuff in there. Because a lot of times we'll say, oh, well, where is the evolution? What's the new thing that you're doing? Because they know, the other teams know what the old thing is. And the coach will say, well, we can't get to it. We can't get to that stuff because we're still, for some reason, we're back to kind of square one. I don't think that's going to be the case, but if we're looking at camp questions and we're looking at how will Ime Udoka evolve in his second season, this is a big, big part of it. He may want to evolve. He may want to throw in some new things, but it depends on the players. And the players are going to have to step up and be able to come into camp with their muscle memory back where it was in April, May, and June. They're going to have to get back to that pretty quickly. So the coaching staff can throw in the new stuff. So it's all part of it. It all works together. Again, you can't stay stagnant. Evolve or go extinct. That's the motto. And I believe in that too. I just think that's just something in life. You just have to, you can't stay where you are as much as you want to stay. Oh, this is so comfortable and nice. No, you just, time always moves forward. Everything is moving forward. If you don't move forward with time, you're going to be left behind. And that is it. That is just how it goes in life and in coaching. So Ime Udoka, as great as that first year was, has to continue to evolve. And I'm just very, very curious to see what last year was out of necessity and what is going to grow and become something bigger and better and fresher. So again, this is part of an ongoing series, 10 questions, 10 camp questions. And it's all part of a ongoing series that I'm also doing on Boston Sports Journal. So read it on Boston Sports Journal and then come watch it over here or listen to it over here. Tomorrow, camp question number 4. Will Brad Stevens feel compelled to make an early move? That's a big question for the Celtics, and I will break that down for you tomorrow. So make sure you're tuned in. I say tomorrow because we're back to daily podcasts. Yay! Daily podcasts, Monday through Friday. Fresh free podcast for you wherever you get your podcasts. It's also on YouTube. You can watch the show there. Again, I really do appreciate everybody listening and watching. It's so great to have you on board. The show's growing, and once the season really does start, I'm sure there's going to be a whole new wave of people. So thank you so much for everybody who's been listening over the course of the dead part of the offseason training camps in a week and a half. So we're back. We're doing it Monday through Friday. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And share the podcast. Tell your friends, family, everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.